Hello and welcome to my channel on Ancient and Chinese Astrology. I am professional astrologer Zagata from the website 100%astrology.com, and I would like to make a video discussing why Babylonian astrology is primitive in regards to the natal branch. The reason I'm making this video is because of some astrologers that make bombastic claims that Babylonian astrology is 4, 5, 6, even 7,500 years old. It's the most pure knowledge. It's, after that the tradition deviated, the tradition started to devolve, etc., etc. And again, as I explained, as my YouTube channel Ancient in Chinese Astrology, as I explained in my video a brief history on ancient astrology, and also somewhat touched here in my latest video about the sidereal and tropical zodiac. Again, we have to be very clear about what we mean by the term astrology. By ancient astrology, I mean horoscopic astrology, astrology that we understand as today. Astrology with the houses, the rulerships, sect, the planetary configurations, aspects, reception, and what have you. The relationship between the domiciles, whether they're masculine or feminine, the elements, the joys, etc., etc. So again, I realize that this may be some controversial topic, especially to those that are rather fixed, no pun intended with their fixed sidereal zodiac, but rather fixed in their views. So again, this topic might generate some controversy, some heat, so to say, some quarreling, some attacks, which are martial significations. And again, by the principle of antipathy in astrological medicine, we deal with this with Mars. We deal with by introducing Venusian energy. So Venus rules sweet things. And also, if you're not hungry, I had this before I made the video. You can read some poetry, or you could watch a romantic movie, or you could read about topics that deal with reconciliation and unification, which are significations of Venus, as opposed to the significations of Mars being severing. So. Again, I had these two cookies which are homemade with spelt, and this is honey. And while I was having the cookies, again, this is the bamboo like how do you call this in English? Anyhow, it's like for what you put the plates on. And so I was having the cookies. I had this realization, because initially I took 2 round cookies, but I thought, this does not represent what I'm trying to convey. What I'm trying to convey is that, of course, in our tradition, in the Western tradition, we write from the left to the right. So this is the development from left to right. So as you will see, the first one is Babylonian astrology. So it's with the round. Again, this is ancient astrology, and again, here we have a circle, which is the perfect geometrical form, which is, its creation, it's 360 degrees, etc., etc. Whereas here we don't have a circle. We have some form of some type of astronomy and astrology that developed over the millennia. And in fact, as I explained in my yesterday's video about the zodiacs, Babylonian, quoting this most famous Arabic astrologer of the 9th century, Abu Mashar, translated by Levente Laszlo from the project Horoi, which I'm a subscriber of, and patron. And Abu Mashar says that the Babylonians, or the Chaldeans, were the first ones to discover, he says, astronomy, and the second ones were, I believe, the Indians or the Persians, or vice versa. Anyhow, the point is, there was a long tradition of a few thousand years, at least, of astronomical and astrological observations of the sky, and it was coupled with mundane astrology. But this is not astrology as we know it and as we practice it. And furthermore, there was the zodiac, without which we can't practice astrology, was not standardized until the 5th century before the Common Era. So again, these claims about these thousands of years old astrology, they were practicing some sort of very basic astronomy and astrology, and they were using constellational zodiac. For example, in ancient Babylon they had 18 constellations, not 12, and in China they had I believe 27, or was it in Egypt 27 and in China 31, or etc, etc. So again, this uneven number, this was prior a few thousand years before the invention and introduction, standardization of the zodiac. And speaking of Babylonian, what is referred to as Babylonian astrology, I would like to quote, I keep quoting from this extremely useful book of Chris Brennan, Hellenistic Astrology, the study of fate and fortune, because he's using the scientific approach. He's quoting all the sources, so it's extremely useful to have it as a resource. So again, chapter 1, page 1, in fact, as he explains, the term Babylonian is somewhat misleading and inaccurate because over the course between the 3rd and the 1st millennium before the Common Era, the region was incorporated in the Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, Neo-Assyrian, Neo-Babylonian, Achaemenid, Seleucid, and Parthian empires. So, for the sake of it's better perhaps to refer it as Mesopotamian astrology, or especially Mesopotamian tradition. But having said this, the horoscopes that have survived, as I will explain, from this tradition are from the Babylonian period, because they're from the 5th century before the Common Era to the 1st century before the Common Era. So within a period of 350 years. The first one being 410 BCE. Speaking of these Babylonian horoscopes, Chris Brennan quotes two very famous and useful books by Francesca Roseberg, Babylonian, the Heavenly Writing and Babylonian Horoscopes, and also by Abraham Sachs. Abraham Sachs, Babylonian Horoscopes. I will quote. The point is that initially, as Francesca Rosberg explains, in the 19th century, the first Babylonian horoscope was discovered on a tablet, and then in the 1920s, two more were discovered, and then it wasn't until the 1960s when Abraham Sachs found many more at the British Museum in London, the United Kingdom. Over the next decades, in total, 28 Babylonian horoscopes have been recovered and translated as well by Francesca Rosberg and by Sachs. And again, these books are published, and translated into English. Let's see. Speaking of the history of the development of Babylonian astrology, which is why I'm using this representation, is because, again, as I explained, for a few thousand years they did not have a zodiac, they did not have this and that. And the honey that I had with the cookies, the honey is of obviously golden color, with gold being the highest vibration on third density and being used to create. So the honey, it also occurred to me from the Chinese book. If you watch my video, A Brief History of Chinese Astrology, one of the most influential books is Di Tian Sui, a Chinese classic of Chinese astrology of the Four Pillars of Destiny branch, and it's translated as drips of heavenly essence, or drips of heavenly marrow, even like heavenly brain. And so again, this honey being divine, divine insights, divine revelations being passed on to humans, etc., to enlightened people, to monks, to kings, etc. And as you see, this is the first millennia and centuries, and then as time progressed, more and more divine drips were dropping and reaching Earth, so to say, and scientists, astronomers, astrologers, etc. started having insights, mathematicians, etc. and astronomy and mathematics improved. And again, I'm representing something that, as Chris Brennan quotes, but the point is, as he explains, it wasn't until the 8th century when they started a scientific program of meticulously observing the visible planets and recording their locations on a daily basis. These records are generally referred to today as the astronomical diaries or simply the diaries. Source: for translation of the diaries, see Sachs and Hanger, Astronomical Diaries, page 3 of Chris Brennan. And then he explains later on the next page that by the 5th century the zodiac became standardized with 12 signs of 30 degrees equal. Again, this was not the constellational zodiac, this was the first ideal zodiac. And also that the Mesopotamians, they do not appear to have associated many of the qualities with of the signs that later became common, such as gender, element, rulership, etc. And he also explains that the development of natal astrology also was connected with the development of ephemeris, of tables for recording the positions of the planets, so that astrologers were not as dependent on the sky anymore, so they could focus more on the astrology, and as a result, astrology developed further. And also he says that, and again quoting, that at this stage the Babylonians do not seem to have associated the signs with the 4 elements. Again, the type of astrology that existed was again extremely rudimentary and primitive. Again, and I should again preface, I'm not attacking, as I will explain, I'm not criticizing, I'm merely showing the history and development of astrology. It is what it is. As Brennan explains, that there is this Mesopotamian manual on the subject, possibly referred to by scholars as TCL 614, source translated in Sachs Babylonian horoscopes, page 6570, and etc. etc. There are similar delineations on a tablet translated by Rochberg Houghton, etc. Another source. So what I'm saying is that, and what you're seeing, what the history is that as divine drips started reaching more and more, the zodiac, the ideal circle, the ideal figure was formed, as you see that at the end. And moreover, if you will notice on the plate, these divine drips continued because the tradition was yet to reach its full potential, which happened later in the first millennium of the Common Era. And let me show you. I will translate some of these Babylonian horoscopes. I mean, I will quote. I don't know these languages, but I will quote from Chris Brennan's book, and he's quoting from Rochberg and from Sachs. Again, we have to. I'm not gonna, because they're so brief. They're like 1-2 sentences. These are selections from Chris Brennan extracted from the horoscopes, but the horoscopes themselves are like a few sentences for the whole horoscope, and these few sentences include giving the positions of the planets, the day of birth, what hour was, etc., etc. And I'm speaking as a practicing professional astrologer. I'm looking into the delineations. I don't care about the historical data. So again, example. Page 5 of Chris Brennan's book. If a child is born when the moon has come forth, in brackets, then his life, question mark, will be, closing brackets, bright, excellent, regular, and long. Dots, dots, dots. And another passage. If a child is born when Jupiter has come forth, brackets, then his life, question mark, will be, end of brackets, regular, well, he will become rich, he will grow old, brackets, his days will be long. That's it, folks. Another one. If a child is born when Venus has come forth, brackets, then his life, question mark, will be, closing brackets, exceptionally, with a question mark, calm. Wherever he may go, it will be favorable, brackets, his, end of brackets, days will be long. Another interpretive principle. If a child is born when Mars has come forth, comma, brackets, then dots, empty, so empty, there is a lacuna, hot, question mark in brackets, temper, question mark, lacuna. You'll think, I will read a few more, again, they're so brief that if a child is born when Saturn has come forth, brackets, then his life, question mark, will be, closing brackets, dark, obscure, sick, and constrained. Source, Sachs, Babylonian Horoscopes, page 68, etc. And Brennan says, I omitted the delineations for the Sun and Mercury, which are either missing or fragmentary. Again, there is another, Brennan explains, later on the same text gives some delineations that involve two planets at the same time. If a child is born when Venus comes forth and Jupiter, brackets, had, question mark, closing brackets, set, his wife will be stronger than he. In other words, the wife of the native, the spouse of the native, will be stronger than the native. Next, if a child is born when Venus comes forth and Saturn, brackets, had, with a question mark, closing brackets, so, and Saturn had set, his oldest son will die. And the last one, if a child is born when Venus comes forth and Mars, brackets, had, closing brackets, with a question mark, set, so, and Mars had set, he will capture his personal enemy. Source, Sachs, Babylonian Horoscopes, page 69. That's it that Chris Brennan has quoted. I'm not gonna give others. That's plenty. That's plenty. You get to see the brevity and how primitive this initial astrology is. Again, he also says that later on they started giving also some stars, mixing stars with planets. That's okay. But without the houses, as I will show, without what we're calling astrology, it's so rudimentary, so primitive that it can barely be used. And it is, pay attention here, because if these configurations are not present in your own chart, in the chart of your family, in the chart of your clients, then what are you going to do? Are you going to keep silent? Because you can't, because it's not applicable to the given horoscope. I will close this with the development of this type of astrology before horoscopic astrology. Chris Brennan explains here that while the Mesopotamians were primarily focused on the ecliptic and the movement of the planets through the signs of the zodiac, the Egyptians were focused on the diurnal rotation and the movement of the stars through the regions of the sky that would later become associated with the 12 houses. And last sentence, sometime around the 3rd century before the Common Era, the 12 sign zodiac was imported from Mesopotamia into Egypt. End of quote, page 8 of Chris Brennan's book. So this should give you a very good idea of the type of primitive astrology that existed. Again, I'm not, it was what it was. It was advancing slowly, it was progressing. But again, some people might say, why is Zagata attacking Babylonian astrology? I'm not attacking. Be careful with the words. If you attack something, you would assume that the other party would have some sort of defense, would have some sort of arguments and counterattack you. When there is nothing on the other side, I'm not attacking. I'm destroying not Babylonian astrology, which I like, which I use. I'm destroying the view, the fixed and ridiculous view and claim that Babylonian astrology is the most advanced type of astrology, etc. That it was pure divine knowledge, that it was revelation, and after that astrology started evolving. Again, it's preposterous. And just to illustrate, this does not mean I found this picture as also as a representation. This does not mean that watching the sky is useless. No, I'm not claiming that. However, we should, if you're an astrologer, if you're studying astrology, if you're a professional, you will know that watching the sky itself is very different from actually delineating charts. This will help you with, with contemplation, with meditation, etc. Not just sky, nature, as also the Chinese sages and astrologers also recommend. But we have to differentiate between this very initial, very rudimentary form of astrology and what later on developed. And if you're not an astrologer, if you're just watching this out of curiosity, you can't imagine the type of how shall I call it? The type of gap, enormous, huge gap that existed with this rudimentary form of astrology, Babylonian astrology, and then the astrology that appeared, the Hellenistic, the initial ancient astrology. So imagine as a Babylonian horoscope tablet. So what you would have the positions of the planets, the day of birth, where the moon was, what watch was. They used to divide it into watches, etc. But you can't place the planets, friends. You can't place the planets in the houses. You can have them in the constellations, when they use the sidereal zodiac, but you can't place them in the houses. You don't know what planet rules which. You know nothing, basically. So you can use whether the planets make a phasis, which is planetary appearance, disappearance, station, etc. Or you can use, they had the distinction of benefic and malefic, saying that Jupiter and Venus are benefic and that Mars and Saturn are obviously malefic, and Mercury is benefic or some sort of also, or could be neutral. So again, where does this take you? I mean, and this is a chart of again, this view is about the supremacy of Babylonian astrology, etc., especially in Bulgaria, because there are some Western sidereal astrologers that also make some claims, but they're not as hardcore or as, how shall I put it? They're not so far off the road that they're no longer seeing reality. But here, Rumen Kolev and his and especially those that are influenced by him, his students and their other students, have these bombastic claims and assertions that just are plain wrong and extremely misleading. And so this is Rumen Kolev's program, Porphyrio Magos 2, which I have, professional program, and I calculated the chart for the year 69. Can I increase? Yes, 69 before the Common Era, because this is when the last surviving Babylonian horoscope was found. So it comes from this year. So this is when again Hellenistic astrology started appearing little by little. So the point is, imagine I tried first. I tried in his program tried to remove. Imagine trying to remove the houses. You can have the zodiac, but you can't have the houses. So you can't place the planets anywhere. You can't. We're so used to this because this is astrology. You can't place them anywhere. So imagine removing the houses, and what you would be left with is this is, by the way, this is the local horizon. So this is where also the parents are, the co-rising, these constellations, and this is the meridian. It's imagine having just that, and what you would be left with again is. Also, don't pay attention to this about Hilik, about the giver of life, the releaser point, or the giver of years, or the captain of the chart. These doctrines did not exist. So again, what are you left with? I mean, by the way, I'm using the here for this chart the Babylonian zodiac, the Aldebaran 15, and the way, for example, you can tell here is because the ascensions of the images of the signs are. They differ, they're not the same. Whereas with the tropical, they're always, again, as the original tradition. As you see, Sagittarius co-rises with Cancer. Sagittarius is 35.3, Cancer is 34.4. Aquarius co-rises with Taurus, so 24.2 to 22.9. Again, the differences here are relatively small because it's close to the 3rd century, early 3rd century or mid 3rd century, when the zodiacs coincided, the vernal point. So what we're having here is not such a deviation. But as I explained in my video on the zodiac, the ancients were not aware of precession, and they used the astrologers, except for, Ptolemy was possibly the first one explicitly, and they mixed the two zodiacs, but they coincided. And even those that used sidereal tables, as the vast majority of astrologers up to the mid 4th century CE, as per scientist Alexander Jones, they used these tables of rising times that are fixed. In other words, they use them within the context of the tropical zodiac. What else do I have to add? Well, someone could say, well, you don't understand. The Mesopotamian tradition was very secretive. They were oral. It's an oral tradition, etc. Okay, folks, I don't deny that. However, are you claiming that the Hellenistic tradition, or if astrology in general, traditional astrology ancient astrology was not an oral tradition? I don't think that you would do this, because it's plainly with Valens. You see the curses, 2nd century astrologer of the Common Era. You see the curses that this knowledge was meant for his disciples, for his students, and that it should not be revealed to random people. And there were curses for this. Also in Firmicus Maternus, 4th century CE, Roman astrologer and lawyer. He also has curses in his book that this knowledge should not be spread randomly. Are you saying that again with the Indian tradition? Yes, it's oral. It's perhaps even more oral, but again they have sources. Again, this argument is it's simply not valid. And also with Chinese astrology, they're even more secretive and more cryptic, and yet they also have sources. So, in other words, you may say, well, I have studied Babylonian astrology, Babylonian natal astrology, I emphasize. Oh, really? Can you direct me to specific sources that teach Babylonian natal astrology? Please be so kind. Because if you want to study ancient astrology, if you want to study Hellenistic astrology, I have given the sources, I have given the translations in my video, A Brief History of Ancient Astrology, and also with the zodiac video. There are translations even online that you can read for free, even on some of the books. Or if you want to study Perso-Arabic astrology, or if you want to study medieval or European astrology, or if you want to study Indian astrology, Jyotish, there are translations, you can do so. But I'm talking again natal astrology. But with Babylonian astrology, you will not find such manuals. Why? Because it was primitive. Again, a fact. It's not it's not an insinuation or something. Again, this I believe I have sufficiently explained this. And again, if you want to compare with ancient astrology, again, no lots, nothing, basically nothing. You have planetary phases, yes, which are useful, very useful for the profession, and you have some configuration. You have crumbs, like I like to say. You have some crumbs, some pieces, some bits, but this is not deep. Which is why I named the video why Babylonian astrology is primitive in regards to the natal branch. So I hope this was useful. If some astrologers, you come across such astrologers or students that make such bombastic statements that it's the purest astrology, that it was thousands of years ago practiced, the natal branch. Again, please use these arguments, show them what are the actual facts and not assertions or theories, etc. And put them in their place and direct them to this video. And again, what we have when we the bottom line is what we have a Babylonian zodiac, that's true, but we don't have Babylonian natal astrology. So what they're doing, these followers of Rumen Kolev they're claiming Babylonian astrology, but they're using a sidereal zodiac with ancient astrology. But they're not saying this to their students, and they perpetuate this wrong and false claim that Babylonian astrology is thousands of years old and that they were the most enlightened, etc., etc. Speaking about again natal astrology, or even if you want horary or electional, which didn't exist back then. So again, folks, let's separate what is fact and what is what's make believe, what someone would like it to be because they're pulling students to their site and selling them materials or something, or they're indoctrinating them in certain views, etc., etc. And these students become extremely fixed, or rather fanatical in their views, and start attacking astrologers of the later tradition. So again, don't do this. It doesn't. It does a big disservice to our favorite science and art. And yeah, again, I hope this was instructional. If you have some questions or comments, or if you'd like to subscribe, I would appreciate it. Thank you.